and a very warm welcome to episode 7 of Julie's Quick and Easy Tutorials. Now today I'm going to be showing you how to make this Roman blind, and I have made one of these before here on the channel, but it was part of my Doll's House Diary series, so in amongst one of the kitchen episodes. And as I was making another one for a false wall that I'm building as a backdrop to one of the projects in my next book, I thought it would be nice to share it with you again. So let's get started. So for this project you're going to need your fabric, 3 pieces of 3mm or 1/8 of an inch dowel, which is the same width as your window frame, so the outer sides of your window frame, and then a suitable glue for fabric, and I'm using my Gorilla Wood glue, which I find works really well with fabric. Okay, so cut your fabric so that it's just slightly larger than your window. So I've got mine about 9mm wider at each side, or 3/8 of an inch. And then if I put that at the top there, it's about 12mm or half an inch longer. Now we may not use all of the height of the fabric, but at least then we can trim a little bit off if we need to. And we're going to begin by gluing over a seam at either side. Okay, so begin by folding over your first seam, and at this stage just sort of crease it into the fabric. And if you're using a check or striped fabric, then that is quite easy because you know you're getting a nice straight line. But if not, then just make a little pencil mark at the top and bottom and just fold to your marks like that. And then what I want to do is actually just measure it against the window and then work out where I need to fold the next one. So lay that alongside the frame like that, and then you can make the fold at the other side so that your fabric reaches both sides of the frame. And I've got a little bit more on this side. That doesn't matter, I can trim a little bit of that off. It's easy for me because obviously I've got this window here that I can move around really easily, but if you're making one to go inside your doll's house, then you can make a paper template of your window or just have your measurements with you as you're doing it, but you might want to just keep popping and checking to make sure that you're getting the sizing correct. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off of that wider seam. And then you can apply the glue. Apply the glue, but don't stick it down yet. And then I always find if you leave it for a sort of minute or so, just to start going off, then it doesn't seep through the fabric. Always just let it dry off a little bit first. And then you can make your first fold. Same at that side. Okay, so we'll let that dry off for a moment. Okay, so what we're going to do now is fold in our first piece of dowel. So you can crease the line of where that will need to go, and you just want to pull over enough fabric so that you're sort of encasing that in there. Crease it over again, and then what I'm actually going to do is trim away each of these corners. So pull the dowel out like that and make your crease, and then just so we're not going to see that fabric overhanging at the front, I just want to trim away at a very sort of shallow angle. So just go down like that to where you've made your crease. Same on that side, and then you can apply your glue. So cover the entire flap. Again, we'll just let that dry off for 30 seconds or so before we glue that over. Okay, so put the first piece of dowel in like that, so that it's sitting evenly in there, and then glue the fabric over. Again, if you've got stripes or checks, then try to line them up as you're doing that, and that will keep it square, and sort of crease it in like that. Now we want to decide where we want our first or second piece of dowel to sit. Now I only want my blind covering a third of my window, so it's only actually going to be about that long. So I'm going to do my sort of fold in the centre. So that will be about there. So probably about 3/4 of an inch or 19mm from the top, like that. So fold it over, make sure you're happy with that. Make sure it's straight as well. So again, if you're using a patterned fabric, just make a couple of little pencil lines on there. So much easier if you're using check or stripes. So get your crease in the right place, crease that in, and then what we're actually going to do is put a bit of glue under there first of all, and then we'll go around the back and glue the dowel into place. So pull that open like that, and you just need to put the glue under that bottom crease there. Try not to get it on the rest of your blind. Just be really careful. Again, let that dry off for 30 seconds or so. Okay, and then glue that down, making sure you're covering your glue. Give that a good press. And then we're going to turn over again. Pull the flap downwards towards the bottom of your blind, and the piece of dowel will sit in there like that, and we'll glue around like that. So again, apply the glue, and you can actually apply it to the flap. Like that. Now if you're using a thinner fabric, then do let that dry off for a bit longer. Because I'm using a thicker fabric and I've made quite a sort of thick flap here, I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. And again, you're sort of folding in the piece of dowel there, so encasing it in there. Crease along with your fingers. That piece can now be left to dry off, and it's important that you do leave those drying times, otherwise when we do the bottom bit we might just sort of pull this one out if the glue hasn't dried. Okay, so now you can decide how long you actually want your blind to be. So as I say, I only want mine sort of covering a third of the window, so I'm going to use that little line there as the bottom line. So that's where I will glue in my final piece of dowel. So it's just going to sit in the top third of the window like that. Okay, so crease in your bottom line again, and then you can turn over and apply your glue. And I'm actually going to trim after I've put the dowel in, so that I get an exact measurement. Like that. Again, let that dry off for a bit. Okay, so then pop the final piece of dowel in. Now you may want to use more pieces of dowel, especially like I say if you've got a longer window, so you would just sort of copy that step all the way down until you're ready then to put the final piece in. Like that. So fold that over, again keeping your lines straight. Crease it in. Really pressing it down with my nail there as well, and then trim off your excess fabric. making sure you don't cut into your blind. Like that. And then what I'm going to do is just trim off those corners again, so just a very slight angle. Then you may need to just pop a little bit more glue underneath. Okay, so press down the fabric, crease the piece of dowel in like that, and that can now be left to dry. And then to hide any messy seams at the back of your blind, especially if you're using it in your doll's house and the window is obviously going to be visible from both sides, you can just add in an extra piece of fabric just to cover up all the sort of hemmed areas at the back like that. Now mine is just for a false wall, so I'm not going to do that step, but that really does finish it off nicely and will look neater from the outside of your doll's house as well. Okay, so we can now glue the blind into place. Okay, so apply glue to the back of the top piece of dowel, making sure that your pleats are hanging downwards. That's something that I've done before. Like that. And then I'm actually going to stick mine so it sits just above the window frame, and that will help to hold it in place as well. So make sure it's lined up as well with the sides of your window and give it a good press into place. And there is our completed Roman blind. Now if you have a go at making a Roman blind for your doll's house or room box, then I'd love to see your photos, and you can share them in my Facebook group, Little Bits and Pieces by You. Now if you're not already a member, just head over to my Facebook page and you'll find a link to that below where you can request to join. And if you like the look of this window, I'm going to be sharing a tutorial over on my Patreon page as part of my monthly vlog, Tea, Biscuits and Doll's House Chatter, and I'll show you how to actually make a working window for your doll's house. Now Patreon is a paid membership platform where you can join for as little as £1, $1 a month, and I would love to see you there, as your support means that I can continue making these videos, not only on Patreon but also here on YouTube. And just one more thing before I let you go, please do hit the subscribe button before you leave, and that will help others to find me and means that I'll be able to share even more videos. Okay, so that's it for today, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.